Welcome to the Cora's Quilts YouTube channel. I'm Shelley Cavanna. I'm a quilt pattern author and fabric designer, and it's my mission to help you make stunning quilts simply. In today's video, I'm excited to be sharing Plumage, a brand new free quilt block tutorial. You can find a link in the description box below to download the block pattern and sew along with me. The pattern also includes 4 sample quilt settings as well. Plumage is a fun and modern reimagining of the classic and horribly named Old Maid's Puzzle quilt block. It finishes at 12 inches square and pulls in elements from 2 of my favorite quilts. It borrows the frilly pineapple corners from my Pineapple Promenade quilt, and it repurposes the weather vane points from my weather vane star in my Barn Star Sampler quilt. This block features some of the bold and beautiful prints from my brand new fabric collection called Secret Garden, which will be hitting shops a little later this fall. And while I love how fun and graphic this block is on its own, the magic really happens when you start putting blocks together. Joining together 4 blocks creates this beautiful feathered star. Adding 3-inch borders around the perimeter creates the illusion that the block is floating in the middle of the quilt. And with only 4 blocks needed and a finished size of 30 inches square, this project is a fast and fun tabletopper you'll be making for every season. If larger quilts are more your style, then look what happens when we take 9 of those feather stars and put them together. The result is a gorgeous quilt that's part pineapple, part star, with loads of movement and secondary patterns created with just one simple block. If you're looking for a more modern approach to the pineapple quilt, check out what happens when you join blocks that are all facing the same way. This layout would be an amazing way to repurpose your scraps in a fun and playful way. Finally, if like me, you love a good modern block in a classic setting, look at how much the quilt top changes when we add some skinny sashing and colorful cornerstones. I love how the added units and the extra negative space creates the appearance of circular units without the hassle of sewing curved seams. With so many different ways to use the blocks, let's take a closer look at how to put them together. To make a single block, you'll need either a fat eighth or a 10-inch square of a total of 6 prints, along with 1 fat quarter of the background print. This video assumes that you've already starched and pressed your fabric, and that you've followed the instructions in our free block pattern download to cut and label your fabric pieces. Let's take a quick look at our block anatomy to understand the various shapes we'll be working with for this block. 2 of the quadrants feature stitch and flip pineapple frills, while the other 2 quadrants are multicolored weather vane corners. In addition to having some standard quilting supplies and your fabric on hand, you're also going to want to have some sort of a water-soluble or ceramic pencil for making our stitch and flip corners. You can find our full list of recommended tools and notions in the description box below. And if you're new to any of the techniques we're sharing in this video, be sure to practice first with some scrap fabric. To build the foundation for our pineapple blocks, we're actually going to start with a half-square triangle unit. My favorite way to make these units are using a 2-at-a-time method, and we'll piece them larger than needed and trim them down to the perfect size. First, use your ceramic pencil to mark a diagonal line on the wrong side of your C-square. Be sure to line up your pencil, not your ruler, with the corners of your square. If you line up your ruler with the corners, then your line is going to be off-center by a bit, and you might end up with one unit that's too small. After marking, then pin your C-square right sides together with a J-square. Sew a scant 1/4-inch seam along both sides of the mark. A scant 1/4-inch seam is just a few thread widths smaller than a true 1/4-inch seam, and will give you a little bit of wiggle room when it comes time to square your unit. After stitching, carefully cut your unit in half along the marked line and then press your seams towards C. Finally, carefully center and trim each unit to 3.5 inches. Using a small ruler with the 45-degree angle marks on it will help your accuracy. Simply line up the center seam with the 45-degree mark and then carefully trim the first 2 sides. Then rotate the block around, line up the center seam with the angled mark on the ruler and the edges that you just trimmed with the 3.5-inch marks on the ruler. Finish trimming the last 2 sides. You'll need 2 of these half-square triangle units for each plumage block. After you've trimmed both of your half-square triangle blocks, you'll attach an eye rectangle to the side of each. You'll finish this step out by attaching an H rectangle to the bottom. This is building out our background. Our remaining 2 print triangles will be attached as stitch and flip corners. First, you'll mark a diagonal line on the wrong side of both of your B squares. Then pin one of these marked squares right sides together to the lower right of the unit from step 2. You'll want to make sure that your stitching line overlaps the previous print. This time, we're going to sew on the marked line. Then we'll trim the excess fabric a 1/4 inch away from the seam and press towards B. Again, you'll want to make 2 of these units. To finish our pineapple quadrants, you'll add the final background pieces by attaching H and G rectangles to the right and bottom sides. Then you'll mark your stitching line on the wrong side of your A square, pin it right sides together to the lower right corner, and stitch on the mark. Trim, press, and then you've finished your pineapple quadrants. This video is sponsored by me. I love the communities that Quilt Along programs build, and you probably already know that I have a slight obsession with sampler quilts, so I want to invite you to join me in making my brand new Yuletide sampler quilt. Starting in September, I'm partnering with the Creative Sparks online class platform as we embark on a year-long quilt-along journey to make this fun and festive wintry quilt together. Watch your quilting confidence grow with each block as we build our own winter wonderland. Every month, I'll share my tips and tricks for assembling a new block. We'll be exploring how to make Lone Star style blocks using only squares and rectangles. We'll work with the Tri-Rex ruler pair to transform triangle and square blocks into adorable evergreen trees. And we'll practice a whole variety of stitch and flip techniques to effortlessly make a variety of complex looking angular shapes. The class includes access to our monthly videos and pattern downloads, our private Creative Sparks Quilt-Along community, and discussions with me. And the best part, your course content doesn't expire, so you can enjoy sewing and working at a pace that's comfortable for you. Use the link in the description box below to enroll in the class today. We are going to have so much fun putting together this festive winter quilt. I'll see you there. Our weather vane quadrants are a breeze to put together. First, you'll make additional half-square triangle units with your D and E squares. Then, lay out your completed half-square triangle units with F and K squares in a 2x2 formation. Sew the pieces together into rows, pressing the seams towards the solid squares. Then, join the rows together. If you've pressed your seams according to our pressing suggestions in the pattern, then your center seam will nest. If you line up the edges of your block and then sort of slide these two seams towards one another, you'll feel them butt right up against each other, and this will give you a lovely, crisp, finished corner after sewing. You'll know that when you go to press your completed weather vane quadrant, that the two sides of this new seam will naturally want to go in opposite directions. I like to take the time to spin these seams to help reduce some of the bulk in my block. To do this, gently ease apart the stitches above the horizontal seam. Once you release them, you'll see that you can press half of the seam in one direction and the other half of the seam in the opposite direction. You'll know that you pressed your unit correctly if you end up with this cute little pinwheel in the center. To assemble the block, we'll lay out our pineapple quadrants and weather vane quadrants in that same 2x2 formation, paying careful attention to the orientation of the blocks. You'll want the noses of your pineapple blocks pointing towards each other, while the print portions of the weather vane blocks should be pointing away from the center. Sew the blocks together into rows, pressing the seams towards the weather vane units. You don't have any points to match up, so piecing is a breeze. Then join the rows together, making sure to line up those center nesting seams. Give your block one final press, again spinning that center seam, and then pat yourself on the back because you've finished your plumage block. Thanks for joining me here on the Cora's Quilts YouTube channel for our free plumage quilt block tutorial. Remember that you can share all of your photos of your blocks and quilts made with this pattern over on Instagram using hashtag Cora's Quilts. Be sure to tag us at Cora's Quilts so we can see your projects too. Be sure that you've signed up to receive our emailed newsletter over on our website. You can keep up with the latest happenings in our studio, plus news about new fabric collections, patterns, and books. We've left the link in the description box below, and we'll send you a copy of our 2 latest free quilt patterns as a thank you for signing up. Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed here on our YouTube channel. Happy quilting, and we'll see you again soon with another stunning quilt made simple.